It's the knowledge and the feeling that whenever it comes to an important fight, you have someone shoulder to shoulder fighting with you.
The aim is to make the horse go more beautiful, like a dancer. You cannot speak with the horse, but for sure, harmony between the rider and the horse can be very deep.
Dressage, where the relationship between man and horse is displayed, showing off the horse's natural beauty. The pas de deux, a dance on horseback, looks graceful and easy. But to teach a horse the movements is a difficult and lengthy process which takes at least 4 years. And to give him the muscles and mental attitude which will enable him to give his best performance may take his whole life. But the horse is not learning any tricks. It's not circus, it's dressage. The word means the training of horses, based entirely on their natural action. All the movements are developed from those that are performed when free. To find the horse which will one day perform the Grand Prix, the most advanced dressage test of all, is one of the great problems of the sport, and often amounts to no more than a gamble. All the top riders, even the world champion Anna Greta Jensen, spend hours searching for young horses which are natural athletes with good free paces and with the willingness to learn and the intelligence to understand the rider's requests. The hardest thing to find is the horse which will enjoy dressage enough to be obedient and yet is extrovert enough to show himself off. His cheekiness or naughtiness will eventually turn to sparkle in the arena as his own personality comes through. Rainer Klimke, reigning Olympic champion and twice world champion, is known as the Grand Master of Dressage. Here at Aachen we see him with his greatest horse of recent years, the Westphalian-bred Alaric.
Ali is the most special horse I have had in my life. He is such a person. When he was a young horse, he played with the rider. And everybody can see this and laugh maybe. He liked to balk and run away, but, well, on the other hand, when you could manage him, that he was just so much prepared that he was not full in power, then he was a king.
Nummer 27, 27, Wiley Trout mit Christopher Bartle, Großbritannien.
Dressage in England has changed from being a minority activity to become the fastest growing equestrian sport. Chris Bartle and his Irish-bred Wiley Trout were placed 6th at the last Olympics, the highest ever placing of a British rider.
There'll never be the same relationship with another horse as there is with Wiley Trout. He was an absolute lunatic when he was 6. The only way they could stop him was by running him into a barn. He isn't very gentle or kind-natured. If you approached him looking over his box door, he'd likely charge at you with his teeth gnashing. He's a great show-off, both ridden and when he's free. If you turn him in the field to lark about, he behaves as though he's entire. He suits my temperament well because I like working with that sort of horse. For somebody else, they would have perhaps assessed his temperament as just being crazy. Now then, the old proof. Thanks, Bill. He has a very generous temperament. All along, he's required a lot of patience to get him to accept that what you're asking him doesn't have to be done at 150%, 100% will do. The communication you have with the horse is very much akin to the way you talk to individuals. You get the feedback according to what you've said and how you've said it.
Chris started his sporting career as a steeplechase jockey, but later turned to eventing, in which field he's still successful. Wiley Trout started as a point-to-pointer. Chris then bought him as an event horse, taking him right up to advanced standard. However, after seeing one of Rainer Klimke's spectacular performances at Goodwood, Chris turned to dressage with Wiley Trout.
Sometimes at home he's very bullish and argy-bargy, whereas when you take him away to a competition, he becomes a different character, more reliant on myself. Perhaps the most difficult part of the competition is to assess in advance how much time you're going to need to warm up to make sure that the horse is going to show off well, without having gone over the top. And once you've made that decision, there's no going back.
Yeah, I would have liked another 10 or 15 minutes, but that's the game.
I know whether he's going to do a good test according to his mood. You have just the right sort of tension. Pride, I suppose, from the horse. The pressure's put on them to produce that bit extra in public. Some horses react well to that and try harder. Others can't stand that pressure and tend to switch off. The great balancing act in Grand Prix dressage must be having that extra bit of flamboyance together with accuracy. There's a tendency at the moment for the accuracy to count more than the gracefulness of the performance. It should look as though the rider is doing nothing, and by magic this horse is performing. The skill element in actually test riding is to be one step ahead of the horse. If you're a fraction late in setting the horse up for a movement, then you'll find yourself doing it at the moment that you should be performing the movement. You've got to get the timing of that aid absolutely spot on.
Well, we have 5 judges. Each movement is marked 0 to 10. And at the end, you get what they call collective marks. What we're looking for, in fact, is that we envy the rider. That we have the feeling, I would love to sit on that horse.
Christopher Bartle with Mrs. Bartle's Wiley Trout, Great Britain.
Dressage has been practiced by man for centuries. Indeed, Xenophon's treatise on the subject, written in 400 BC, survives today with much that still applies to modern methods of horse training. The collected positions of the horses in the friezes from the Parthenon are good evidence of the high level of horsemanship in those days. For the next 2,000 years or so, the prime use of the horse was for battle and transport rather than pageantry and display. Consequently, the art of equitation was neglected. By the 16th century, the art had re-emerged, but the leading masters resorted to violence to correct any resistance in the horse. Sharp spikes on the bits, long whips and spurs, and even scratching cats tied to poles. Not surprisingly, these cruel methods only resulted in the horse ceasing to cooperate altogether. By the 17th century, the new masters, such as the Duke of Newcastle, took account of this. Some people, as soon as they get on a young horse, entirely undressed and untaught, fancy that by beating and spurring, they'll make him a dressed horse in one morning only. I would fain ask such stupid people whether by beating a boy they could teach him to read without first showing him the alphabet. In the 18th and 19th centuries, several great riding schools grew up to teach haute école, which included the airs above ground. The best of these schools still survive today, including the Cadre Noir from Saumur in France. And, of course, the famous Spanish riding school of Vienna with its beautiful Lipizzaner stallions. The sport of dressage, which grew up in the 20th century, has never included the complicated airs above ground. Ferdi Eilberg takes us through some of the more spectacular Grand Prix movements.
The extended trot is the ultimate forward impulsion and should cover as much ground as possible so that the frame as well as the step lengthens and the horse flows. Here Giovanni is showing a very nice length of stride. In the passage, the horse becomes more majestic, staying in the two-time rhythm of the trot, but suspending his step up in the air. It's the impulsion taken back. Giovanni's not quite lowering the hind leg enough to take on the weight. The half pass is a forward sidewards movement. We see the clear crossing of the legs and the horse bend in the direction it's going. The steps should be as long as possible. You can't press the button. They're animals, they're not machines. It's that moment when the horse is just understanding something you've been trying to tell it for so long. And, you know, all this hard work and this slog after so many weeks, it suddenly seems to, you know, say, why didn't you say that in the first place? In the flying changes, you time your aid so that the horse gets a slight notice to be ready to change the lead, to land on the other diagonal of the canter. The important thing is that it is cleanly jumped through from the hind leg. Here Giovanni is changing every second stride. He looks very expressive. You can see that he bounces the changes. The one-times ask a especially high degree of balance. Only horses who are trained on fairly well are able to learn them at all. You have to let the horse really show that it's enjoying it, and it could do them forever. After 15 years training horses, I still feel a kind of tickle down my back when I manage to get something through to the horse, and it's a fascinating feeling. The canterbred is the most difficult movement in the canter and requires tremendous coordination. The horse has got to take the weight of the front legs and put it onto the hind and go around on the smallest possible spot, keeping its balance and not throwing itself around too quickly, staying in a good 3-time rhythm. It must not give you the impression that the horse has learned it like a trick rather than being developed from the natural paces. The people are different, horses are different. I think the ultimate combination comes together when you have that special feel towards the horse, that you maybe say, I know he's difficult, but he suits me. I like to work with him. And I think the horses, in return, possibly feel the same way. The piaffe being the ultimate collection, the horse has to step absolutely on the spot without losing his rhythm, bounce, and the appearance that it's still going somewhere. Lowering the hindquarters to take the weight off the front, allow the shoulder to come freer, and on top of that, show as much expression as possible.
Formerly, people in England, they thought that it was a sissy sport. And now they have realized that you really have to do something on horseback to ride dressage.
It takes about 4 years to take a horse up to Grand Prix. In show jumping and eventing, it's easier to go out and buy horses that are advanced. But dressage is all about showing off your training. And unless you put that training into them, unless you know the horse really as an individual, you can't show it off at its best. If you school dressage horses every day in the same place, go through the same routines, gradually the horse doesn't try as hard. It gets used to the rider working harder, and a vicious circle is built up. So they school 3-4 days of the week, and the other days they'll do something different, jumping or hacking. What happened to Karen at badminton? Really? The whole object of schooling is to get the horse carrying a greater proportion of his weight on the hindquarters.
Put a weight on a horse and straight away he will stiffen. Well, you can't say to your horse, now come on, old chap, you're going to be in trouble with your front legs, you're going to do your back in. So it is your almost moral duty to help that horse find the correct way to carry the rider. You then educate your horse to very small signals, just gestures in your body. You feel where you want to go, and the horse becomes your legs. The aid is something that you do to help him perform that movement. You can adjust the posture of his neck so that it helps in his action, so that if you want the horse, for example, to take a slightly longer stride, you encourage his neck to go longer.
You're a bit better today, aren't you?
The advanced horse is much more difficult to ride. If you close your legs, the young horse will walk on. Well, an advanced horse needs an extra signal, because that might be stand up and pay attention, or rein back, or now it might be piaffe. And this is where novice riders get caught out. When they go to adjust the stirrups, they inadvertently push a leg into the horse starts circling round. Within 2 seconds, you can undo the training of a horse. Starts right from the beginning. A friend learning to dance with you. You don't want your horse just a sulky old machine who says, oh God, there's no way out of this. You want him to be offering generously because he enjoys it.
In riding the passage, I try to sit relaxed, but at the same time allow myself to come down to the saddle just a little bit more heavily, encouraging the horse to take a bigger gesture in its trot and hold it for a fraction longer. The piaffe is what I call a controlled explosion. The horse has got to have this urge to break out. I gather up the reins, the horse is expecting something, really wanting to go forward. And what I'm saying to him, no you can't, no you can't. You can't really get exhilarated in riding dressage because it's such a controlled sort of thing. But if the horses are going really well, there's nothing to beat that feeling of satisfaction.